blow it in the playoffs.
Welcome, everyone, to a late-night edition of the Puck and Leafs podcast. I'm Joe Cioffz, here with Coach Frank. And, you know, we were going to record earlier, and it was going to primarily be an episode on Patrick Kane and whether the Leafs should acquire him. He didn't look great last game when he played against the Leafs. Didn't look like he had a lot left in the tank. We didn't end up recording, and thank God we didn't, because it would have been a whole big waste of time. Here I am, just chilling, watching A Few Good Men on AMC, one of my favorite movies.
Good movie.
But the thing about AMC, something I don't like, it worked out for me in this instance, is they got a lot of commercials. Take a peek at my phone at the commercial, and bam, there it is. The Leafs make a huge deal, probably the biggest trade deadline trade they've made since Brian Leach in 2004. Would you agree with that, Frankie?
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good comparable.
If you're living on Mars and you haven't heard the deal yet, I'll just break it down for you quickly and hold on for a sec, because it is a lot. The Leafs acquire Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari from the Blues for prospect Mikhail Abramov, Adam Gaudette, a first-round pick in 2023, Ottawa's third-round pick in 2023, the pick that the Leafs acquired in the Matt Murray deal, and a second-round pick in 2024. The Blues retained 50% of Ryan O'Reilly's money. The Leafs also sent a 2025 fourth-rounder to Minnesota, who then retained 25% of Ryan O'Reilly's contract. So the Leafs are paying $1.875 million or so of O'Reilly's contract. Now,
and 1.2 of Acciari, I believe.
That's right. They also got a prospect, I believe, from Minnesota, but a lower-level prospect. Now, this is about a week ago. Dubas had his presser and talked about how they were not going to trade a first-round pick for a rental. And lo and behold, they go and get one of the biggest rentals there are out there, Ryan O'Reilly, who is a unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. I don't know if they have the cap space to even re-sign him next year. At this point, it is a rental. And I'm going to ask you, Frankie, they gave up a lot of draft capital. But do you like the deal, even though they gave up all of that draft capital?
There is a saying in hockey, and it says the best player in the trade usually wins the trade, right? And how can you not like the deal? Like draft picks are draft picks. There's a good chance Leafs are probably going to pick in the 26th, 27th area. And
hopefully 32nd.
And Dubas was probably going to trade back anyways to acquire a second. So now listen, man, this is swinging for the fences. This is not a single down up the middle or a blue double. This is swinging for the fences here. And I think whether you like Dubas or you don't, whether you're a Dubasite or you're a baghead, I guess we can call them, you have to be happy that is this not the type of player that is missing from this lineup? And listen, I don't want to sell Acciari short. He's not just a throw-in here. Acciari brings some much-needed sandpaper and identity in that bottom six. But let's just kind of focus on O'Reilly here. The possibilities are endless now. Like as soon as this trade happened, I was already going through a lineup. Where does he slot in? Right? Where does he fit best? And you now have 6 NHL centers in this lineup if everything stays the same going into tomorrow. That's great options for Keith. So, but not just that. A Conn Smythe winner, one of the better two-way forwards in the league. He's having a bit of an offensive dip this year, but like the intangibles that guy brings to this team, I think somebody told me, and I wasn't sure, I didn't check it, Joe, but I think maybe it was you, I'm not sure. As it states today, the Leafs do not have one Stanley Cup winner on this roster. If I think up and down the roster, right, I don't think they have one. The only guy they had,
Matt Murray. Matt Murray.
Matt Murray. But in the lineup, like an actual forward lineup, now you have two. Acciari won with Boston. So listen, man, let's And the best part is they play Montreal tomorrow. If somehow they get in this lineup tomorrow, there is no better team that you want to put this lineup. It's going to be electric down there. So yeah, I'm Jack. Let's.
Is that the word that they are going to be in the lineup for the Saturday night game?
According to Elliot Friedman, the word is that they should be there by tomorrow. Acciari may not be able to play because he needs a Canadian work visa. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So you already started to mention it and talk about the lineup possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Would you prefer him as like your third line center? Because we've talked a lot about how the Leafs depth just doesn't measure up to Tampa's or Boston's, who they're likely going to play. Now you could add him into the third line role and your depth is so much better, and you add in Acciari and even better. Or do you have him fill in that second line left wing role, which they've been searching for the past few years, it seems like?
I think if I'm thinking like Keith, I think the easiest transition is a third line center role. I was looking at his ice time last game. He plays about 18 minutes a night, and that's in a top six role. Obviously, or a number one center role or number two, whatever you want to call between him and Robert Thomas. But 18 minutes a night, that tells me that that's third line center territory. I don't think I've seen him play the wing. I don't recall him playing the wing even in Calgary, Colorado. Not say he can't. I just this sounds weird, but I don't even think he's a fit with Tavares and Marner. I don't know. The foot speed with Marner, and I don't know. I just think he's better suited on the third line because the third line, they're not plugs. They could add some offense, but David Kampf is an ideal fourth line center, and now that puts him in the right role. So if you want to wheel out your third line, could you find a better third line center in the league now than Ryan O'Reilly? I don't think so. Man. I don't think you can. So now you go Matthews, Tavares, O'Reilly down the middle. Come on, man. I think that adds just an element that it's exciting. Like having a caliber of that player at your third line center is a luxury. I'm just curious who they're going to play beside him. I have an idea, but we can get to that.
Okay, give us that idea. Who do you think fits well with him on that third line role, if that is where they intend to play him?
I think the way I see it, I think the top six stays as is right now. Keith loves Kerfoot. I never really understood it, but
nobody does.
Yeah, at least to start, I think that's where they go with. Like if I'm kind of looking at the lineup for tomorrow night, your top line stays as is. I think Kerfoot slots in with Tavares and Marner. I think O'Reilly centers Engvall and Acciari if he plays. I think Acciari is a pretty decent suited third line player. By the way, he scored 20 goals with Florida a couple of years ago, so he's not like he can.
He's
he
not
does
a
have
total
scoring
plug.
touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then your fourth line is probably going to be obviously Camp, Aston Reese, and I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm totally forgetting Yarncroke. Sorry, Engvall, O'Reilly, and Yarncroke, and then Camp, Aston Reese, and you know what, Joe? I don't know. Apparently, they have to send two guys down now. They're two guys over the roster limit.
Oh.
So the only guys who don't require waivers are Holmberg and Simmons because he's already just went through waivers. Unfortunately, Holmberg might be the odd man out, which is okay because, hey, they gave him a taste of the NHL. He did very well. He could play. And I don't think you want to lose Joey Anderson on waivers right now. I think he'd be a serviceable fourth line player.
Yeah, he's been playing actually really well. I have liked him actually a lot. So
there you go, right? Unless you want to get some cap space back, you put the guy on waivers. But your fourth line is going to be Aston Reese, Kampf, and Acciari, which, hey, I'm good with.
I think they might keep Engvall with Kempf. They seem to have like some chemistry and they work well together because Kempf is good with Engvall and his puck carrying ability. We'll see how it shakes out. I think what I really like about it is it gives them a little bit of insurance in case of an injury. We all remember what happened in the Montreal series. Tavares goes out of the series 10 minutes in, and all of a sudden you have Alex Kerfoot or William Nylander as your second line center.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that, God forbid, that were to happen, you have Ryan O'Reilly being able to slide in there, who's a much better centerman than most teams have on their first or second line anyways to begin with. So it's providing them insurance. I think the lineup's going to be a little bit fluid these next couple of weeks, especially. They're going to definitely try things. Keefe has been known to tinker. He likes to see how things go. So I think they'll give him a couple games with Tavares on that left wing, and they'll see him in the third line role. But I think for them, it makes them better if he's in that third line role to just give them way more depth.
Oh,
and now
100%. Yeah.
You have him going up against Tampa's third line, which is really good. And you can't say that Tampa has an overwhelming advantage there anymore.
Nope.
And it just slots everyone down, just like you said. So,
you know, I wonder if this opens them up to more of those, like Keefe likes to do those stacking the top line of, say, like Matthews, Tavares, and Marner off of a power play, or like, you know, the last minute of a game. I wonder if this gives him that flexibility to possibly throw, like, you know, Tavares on the wing with Matthews and Marner, and then drop O'Reilly as your second line center with Bunting and Nylander. I'm just throwing names out.
Yeah,
But,
he definitely could do that.
you know what
Absolutely,
I mean? Like,
yeah.
that, if you need a goal, it's like, you know, if you can throw those three guys out and then come back with Bunting, O'Reilly, and Nylander or something like that, like that's just they have to win around. They have to win.
You mentioned the power play. I wonder if he fits into that first power play unit, or they're going to use him in the second power play unit. Maybe they go back to the 5 forward unit and they find a role for him. I was never crazy about the 5 forward unit. I think that would bite them in the worst possible spot because of the Leafs, and that just things like that tend to happen. But
he's a fantastic net front presence. He's got a great set of hands in tight. He would be an ideal guy in front of the net on a power play. The problem is John Tavares has been just as good this year in front of the net.
Yeah.
You know, he's had a good year. You can't fault the guy for that. Who are you taking off that unit? That's obvious. Obviously, it's Riley, but like you said, Joe, I don't think they're going into that first round with a 5-man power play. I just don't see it. To be honest with you, if you want to cut his minutes down, there's no reason why he can't play in that second unit. I don't see an issue with that. I think he's brought in more as a penalty killer, to be quite honest with you. I think there's your guy. If anything, Joe, and you know me for this, how many times have I said when you're watching a game, they have guys like Matthews on the bench, Tavares on the bench, and these guys are not taking faceoffs on a penalty kill, defensive zone faceoff, and you had Alex Kerfoot taking a faceoff. Times Zach Hyman taking a faceoff. What happens, Joe? They lose possession, and they're already now in their zone, defending on a penalty kill. Right? Guess who's taking your faceoffs now on the penalty kill?
It's a great point. Yep.
Right? Like, it's the intangibles that we don't understand how crucial a faceoff is in your own zone. I can tell you right now, in the last minute of a game, O'Reilly's out there. If Tavares gets waved out, guess who's coming in to take the draw? Yep. It's O'Reilly, or vice versa. It's things like this, guys, that we take for granted, that are little parts of the game that the Leafs have been hurt on. And I think by O'Reilly and Acciari, you've now added 2 penalty killers. Because I was actually worried who was going to kill penalties in the playoffs for the Leafs, because they have not had a good penalty kill.
They're currently 16th, I believe, in the league on their penalty kill, which simply isn't good enough if you want to win a Stanley Cup. You know that your special teams has to be at least top 10 in both categories, I would say, in order to win a cup. So that is surely going to improve, especially if you could win that first faceoff, like you said, dump it down, kill 30 seconds right off the hop. And I feel like the Leafs penalty kill is pretty good at denying the zone entry. So if they can waste the first full minute of not even allowing the other team to set up, that's half the battle right there. So I totally agree with you right there. What worries me about this deal, so we talked a lot about what we like about the deal. You mentioned before he's not having a career year by his standards. He has been injured. He's dealing with injuries. When the Foligno deal happened, I hated the deal. He was 32 years old or 33 years old. He wasn't having a great year. They paid a premium for him.
Yep.
Now you have O'Reilly. He's 32 years old, not having a great year, and they paid a premium for him. And he's been injured. And we know what happened with Foligno. He got injured as well.
Right.
That's the concern I have with the deal. But the positive certainly outweighs the negative. He certainly checks off so many boxes of what this team needs. A playoff performer, a guy who knows how to win. We would talk about how they need those guys. I guess you got to roll the dice at some point, and it is what it is.
That's the thing, Joe. At what point, like, every player comes with risk. Okay. O'Reilly's coming off an injury. Yes. I would be more concerned if he hadn't played yet. If they made this trade and they didn't have a time frame when he was coming back. He's back. And I think that's what Dubas was kind of waiting for, have him back in the lineup. I also think that, hey, listen, he's rested. He's had 6 weeks off, maybe a little rusty, but he's rested. And I think going down for a playoff run, I actually think the price would have been a lot more if he was playing right now. His price, his goals probably would have been up. His points would have been up. I think the fact that they made this deal without giving up any of their top 5 prospects, because I think their prospects are closer to being NHL ready than, a first round pick or their picks would have been. That's the key here, guys. No Matthew Nyes, no Fraser Minton, no Toppy Niemela, no Ronnie Hervin, and all guys that we've seen in trade proposals on Twitter.
No Robertson.
And Robertson. So, guys, if I can take a line from Cliff Fletcher, the famous draft schmaft, and who's to say they won't acquire picks? You got Ilya Samsonov. Maybe they deal him because they can't sign him. You'll probably acquire a first or a second or a couple. Who knows, right? I'm just saying, let's not worry about that. That's in June.
It's so true. I would much rather give up picks than prospects, because prospects have already been developing for 1, 2, maybe even 3 years. They're so much further along that development curve, as opposed to guys you're going to be drafting in the draft this year. And you're not getting a top 5 pick who's going to be ready right away. You're not getting Connor Bedard. So it's going to be a guy who's probably, you're going to draft them. You have to wait 3, 4, 5 years. Why not just keep the guys you already have that you've already begun to develop? So yeah, I totally agree with that. I'd much rather give up the picks than the prospects.
I was looking for this stat just to follow up my point. All active NHL players in face-off win percentage, Ryan O'Reilly is currently 5th in the league. Now you've just added a top 5 face-off percentage player to your team, to one of the best face-off team in the league. Just got that much better.
Absolutely. Now, do you think there's a possibility? I know it doesn't even really matter at this point, but do you think there's a possibility that he signs an extension with the Leafs so it's not a rental? I think it's a long shot, to be honest. The word was that he was really happy in St. Louis. So I'm sure if St. Louis offered him a good contract, he would have probably stayed. He's an Ontario guy. He may get a little bit of a discount, but he's 32 years old. How long do you want to sign him for? Max 4 years. So you're not going to be able to bring the AAV down by giving him a long-term deal. I just think of it, it's a long shot. He's a rental, and let's just run with it and see where it goes.
I'm not sure if we're looking at the Giordano discount here. Like, he's not signed for $800K.
No chance. Don't even think about that. If you think that, you are drinking the blue Kool-Aid more than you or I have ever had.
You're having a liter of blue Kool-Aid.
Leader.
So
the captain.
I think with that is, it all depends how he does here. Like, Giordano wanted to come here. Like, he was so happy he got dealt here. Obviously, O'Reilly's an Ontario boy, a Leaf fan growing up, the whole story. He probably had bed sheets himself. But what I'm trying to get at is, he's still a serviceable player who would probably command, is it easy to say, Joe, 4 or 5 million on the open market as a UFA? At least. I think he's a guy where, could you get him for 2 years at 2.5?
No, zero chance of that.
Hold on.
Because St. Louis would have definitely offered him that already.
No, it's not what I'm saying. No, that's not what I'm saying. We all thought that Giordano was going to get 3 or 4 on the open market at least. How he came to 800K was incredible. Who's to say that O'Reilly wouldn't do the same to stay in Toronto, is what I'm trying to get at. So I'm trying to come up with a number to say, would 2.5 do it? Would 2-3 million do it? Other than that, Leafs won't be able to do it. You're not going to give this guy what he's asking for. He's going to walk probably back to St. Louis or, to another, but he won't sign for more than 2 years, I don't think.
So his last contract was 7.5 per. The only hope the Leafs have is if Muzzin is once again out for the entire year, his 5.6 goes to LTIR, they can then use that money. If he takes it in the $5 million range, maybe. I don't even think he's going to settle for that. I think he gets more than that on the open market. So, but whatever. We don't even have to worry about that right now. Yeah, it's true. Quickly, Noel Acciari. He's the second guy in the deal. We talked earlier, I believe it was last week, about how Dubas loves to acquire his main piece, but then also get a secondary piece with that. And lo and behold, it happens again. Acciari is that. How do you think he fits in? Do you think he's more of what this team lacks and what they need?
Listen, again, he's not a throw-in in this deal. I think he's had some decent success. Obviously, Dubas, we mentioned that there was a liking for him before the season started. So there's intangibles here that he gives that bottom six an identity. And I think he's fast. What I know about Acciari, what I remember, he can skate and the guy can fly. And there's a clip that I put on my Twitter. He can throw the hands too. He's a fighter. So again, now you got a guy with some bite in this lineup, added with O'Reilly. Now, if a guy like Marchand wants to get under the skin, it's not just Bunting going to go to bat. You got some guys out there that can probably hold their own. I think that is a nice intangible. The fact that he's a former 20 goal scorer, can add a little bit of offense, can penalty kill. You know what, Joe? You probably could have found that somewhere else, but for less. But I think, Dubas evaluates his players based on need, and I think he does feel a need that right now this lineup didn't have. If you notice, that bottom six was looking a lot different combinations the last couple of weeks. They just couldn't find the right fit, whether it was Aston Reese, McMahon, Anderson, Holmberg. They just couldn't find it. I think the problem might be solved now, at least with Acciari. But I still think there's auditions here. I don't think Aston Reese is solidified a spot here. I wouldn't be surprised if Holmberg is in the lineup for game one. I think he's defensively responsible. Who's to say that they don't bring in somebody else? I don't think he's done yet. I honestly don't think he's done yet.
That was going to be my next question. Do you think that there's possibly another deal out there? They still got about, 2 weeks, a week and a half till the deadline?
So as we're talking, Joe, this just happened. Don't get too excited. So the Leafs have just placed Matt Murray on LTIR. So there's a good chance he's not going to be back for a while. So up to today, he wasn't on the LTIR, which means, are you going to go with Samsonov and Wall now down the stretch? Or are we going to see a rotation of Wall and Shalgren? Do the Leafs bring in a veteran goalie as they did, if you remember back way back when Curtis Joseph got hurt? They went with Corey Schwab. Do you remember who his backup was? They made a deadline deal. Tom Barrasso.
Wow, that's right.
And they went into the playoffs with the Joseph, Schwab, and Tom Barrasso trio as insurance. So maybe there's a guy out there they add as an insurance goalie, as a third goalie. They tried to do it last year with Carter Hutton, but it was more like break glass if emergency type of thing. But I honestly think with the moves now, I'm reading here, it gives them $4.4 million in usable space of their LTIR. That screams defenseman to me. And with Justin Hall now out of the lineup yesterday, Keefe has no allegiance to anyone, especially his golden boy Justin Hall. So I think
he's back in the lineup tomorrow, Frankie.
Don't even go there with me right now. I think that's just a back-to-back thing. I think Timmins gets back in against Chicago.
I think you and a lot of people are a little too hard on Justin Hall. I think you should go on The Athletic and read Cam Sharon's article on Justin Hall. I think he does a pretty good job actually defending him.
Yeah, I'll get right on that.
The problem is when Justin Hall is bad, he takes bad and takes it to the next limit. And then everybody
I get it.
That, right?
I get it. But you got a guy in Connor Timmins who has 13 points in 19 games. You can't take the guy out of a lineup because of 2 penalties he took in the game, as Sheldon Keefe says.
He doesn't kill penalties, and Justin Hall's their best penalty killer and blocks their most shots.
So what else?
They have guys to score points. They don't need the 13 points from Timmins. I'm saying what Hall brings currently, they need more of, and that's penalty killing, that's shot blocking. Don't worry. Next year, Frankie, Hall's going to be gone because he's going to go to a different team.
And Connor Timmins is his replacement.
Exactly. So don't worry.
What I'm saying is, I think they're bringing in another guy. I think having Justin Hall in the top 4 it's not fair to him. This is, I got to call it the Phaneuf effect. You can't play a guy higher in the lineup if he can't handle the minutes.
Yeah,
he's a serviceable third line pair. He'll slot in nicely with Sandin if that's the case. But you got to bring in somebody. I think someone's going to bump him out of the lineup, and I think like a Luke Shen type. I think that's the guy that they're probably going to try to acquire here.
Another physical, rugged guy who they could definitely use that element. They had that last year with Lyubushkin. Obviously, they didn't want to pay him going into this season. So,
and who's a healthy scratch with Buffalo? So
there you go. Yeah. So the right move not to re-sign him then.
No.
For the people that say are a little upset, I don't know why you would be upset, but not upset. I guess that's the wrong word. They had their eyes set on Timo Meyer. I love Timo Meyer. He was the best fit, I think, for this team. Even better than O'Reilly. But I think it's clear that in order to acquire Meyer, they would have had to give up Nyes or one of those top prospects, plus all those picks. Mm-hmm. And then you wouldn't have been able to sign Meyer either in the offseason. So they looked at it like they waited. Do we keep all our prospects and get O'Reilly? Or do we trade prospects and picks and get Meyer? So I understand the reasoning and the thinking behind it. Where Meyer goes next, I still think that New Jersey and Carolina are probably the favorites for that. So
I think, listen, I honestly think Kyle Dubas did his due diligence. I think, he probably went to them and said, okay, what's the cost? And it was probably more than he was willing to pay. But New Jersey will pay that price. They are very deep with their prospect pool. They have space to take them in long term. It just makes sense. And I think Dubas was like, you know what? He could probably get more for less. And I think he did. Dubas added a top 6 and a bottom 6 player without giving up even close to the assets that San Jose probably would have wanted for Meyer. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, New Jersey also has that Swiss connection with
Nico
Hischier and Siegenthaler. So yeah, makes a lot of sense there.
Go nuts. I can't wait to see Vidicek stop pucks in the playoffs. That's going to do wonders for them.
All right, before we get out of here, since we were supposed to have a Patrick Kane episode, where do you think Patrick Kane ends up going now that the Rangers are out, the Leafs are out? Quickly.
I think he stays in Chicago, to be honest with you. If he has to go somewhere, you're going to think I'm crazy. I think the Rangers still get him.
Possibly. They'd have to fit that cap, though, and they'd have to pay another team to retain, just like the Leafs kind of did today, but it's possible. I watch him end up on like the Lightning or Boston for like a 3rd-round pick. Makes me sick.
If anything, like I can see like an obscure team like Dallas if he really wants to go there, but I just think he wants to play close to home, and home is Buffalo. Hey, maybe Buffalo. Maybe if they're close to the playoff spot, where they're only 4 points out as we're recording this, it's possible. But I just got that feeling. I think the Rangers really tore his heart out on this one. I think he stays and signs with them in the offseason.
I'd like Buffalo to get him, but Buffalo is in the playoff race. It would be cool to see them get in, even though I hate the Sabres and I hate their fans. Still, they've been out of the playoffs for like 12 years, so that'd be cool. Lastly, before we go, credit to Kyle Dubas, who he does a really good job of keeping things close to the vest. And I think you need to do that in this market. None of the insiders had any leaking of this earlier in the day or this week. I've been listening to podcasts, radio. None of them said anything about the Leafs are close to acquiring O'Reilly. So it just goes to show you, whenever these insiders, Friedman, Johnston, although I like them, whenever they talk about the Leafs, it's based purely off speculation as opposed to things that they're actually hearing. So credit to Doobie. Hopefully the Leafs go on a run and they extend him, because I think he deserves an extension. I think he's done a solid job given some of the things that have happened around the team with the pandemic and the flat cap, all that. I've been outspoken on that before. So, all right, Frankie, any last second remarks before we head on out of here and watch Ryan O'Reilly and the Maple Leafs against the Habitants in Toronto tomorrow?
I am now curious to see what Tampa and Boston does. That's the scary thing, because they have to respond somehow. So be interesting.
The good thing, I think they're going to improve, both of those teams, but
yep.
Boston has one of the worst prospect pools in the league, and Tampa does not have their first round pick. They gave up that pick last year for Hagel. So
yeah, I think Boston gets Gavrikov from Columbus. I think that's probably all that they can do.
Go ahead, get him.
Yeah, I know. I just
totally
think that's
overrated.
the move I see, and I would not be surprised if Tampa digs deep and somehow grabs Bertuzzi from Detroit.
That would suck.
I know, but personally, I hope they do nothing. They all get hurt, but I'm not going to go there.
All right, buddy. Have a great night. You were almost asleep. Hopefully you can get back to sleep.
It's morning now. Listen, it's morning now.
It is. It's true.
My son's got to be up in a few hours. We got a game.
You might as well not even go to bed. Just stay up.
Yeah.
Pull an all-nighter.
We'll get this thing out as quick as possible. Yeah, absolutely. Let's put on the coffee. We're set to go here.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and drop us a comment below. We want to know your thoughts on the trade. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And if so, why? Give us a shout. Thanks, everyone, and let's go Leafs.